something that we can start at the university. But then, because we have our students, they come across all around the world. So then we want to scale from the student level to this entire city, and then the region here, and then beyond the region, worldwide. So for that to happen, I need more time. But when I hope that I will have enough time to explain later how can we make collaboration happen instead of just meeting 2-3 times a year and talking about collaboration again and again, but we all see that actually it's not happening right now. So there are a couple of points that are missing, and we should discuss more about it if you have like next question.
No, this is really interesting, the systematic approach. Lotta, our IoT. From that perspective, what engagements are we currently doing in Ericsson that are inclusive or collaborative?
Thank you, Mike. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, great. So I will share a little bit around how we are collaborating and how we are, from an IoT point of view, trying to bring the whole ecosystem together. But before I do that, let me explain a little bit of what I'm doing. So I'm heading up the sales for our platform services, and we have a particular product which we call the Iot Accelerator. The Iot Accelerator is helping our carriers to go to market with trusted, global, and managed connectivity service. So through our CSPs, we're supporting them to onboard enterprises and support enterprises in their digitization journey. So just a couple of examples of what we're doing with the help of this connectivity platform. We are addressing automotives, for example. We have companies such as Volvo, Toyota, Scania using our connectivity management platform on a global scale. Secondly, we have, through our partners in China Telecom, for example, only recently we had a massive deployment of enablement of advertisement throughout the whole China. So live update of their elevator advertisements through our platform. Lastly, I also wanted to mention an enterprise which is called Axon, which is addressing the security side, where they are having live cameras on the police enforcement jackets to help them to real-time video stream their live interactions in certain incidents, which is helping them massively, because also not only does it provide them with the security, it also provides them with, for example, an opportunity to collect their data. It's easy for them to go back and do their reporting, and it's also giving evidence, which is really, really helpful in certain law enforcement situations. So I think we're doing this, and we're enabling this. We're enabling our CSPs, our service providers, to go to market and address enterprises in a various way with the help of our global trusted connectivity platform. Now, you asked a little bit about the collaboration around that. So coming back to it, we would not manage to do that unless we had all these different parties collaborating. So what we've done is that we've, over a number of years now, for the community which is using our platform, created an event which we call the IoT Day. We had it in Shanghai earlier this year, great turnout, but only recently, 2 weeks back, we had the same setup in Stockholm. So the purpose of that is, of course, to gather all these parties to come, share knowledge, experiences, discuss use cases that we hear here, but also to matchmake. Because not only are we looking at domestic IoT business now, we're looking at international business. And I think also what we heard earlier from Brighter, for those of you that were here, that is going to be a key capability going forward for a number of enterprises. So we're helping them to give them a platform to meet and to matchmake. So we had more than 100 matchmaking sessions between different CSPs, inbound traffic, outbound traffic, making sure that we facilitate that, but also helping new startups such as Brighter, such as Axon, to meet a global network of CSPs to help them in their journey to not only reach their own home market, but also to reach the whole international arena. So I think, in other words, what we're trying to do is to basically create an environment where there is short-term economic benefit, of course, for all parties, but also long-term, because not all the engagement that we're doing is paying off straight away from an economic point of view. But what it also does is that it's providing knowledge, and it's providing organizational knowledge and learning, and that is as important for everyone, I think, to be able to move ahead.
And linking it to the knowledge, 5G is everywhere, but if we want to see what is key about these collaborations with 5G, referring a bit to what Charlotte was saying, the connectivity and providing more of an end-to-end solution where there's thought leadership, knowledge. What's your view on that from a collaboration perspective?
Thank you, Maya, for bringing us here. So I think your original question was why collaboration is important, and also hinging on the conversation with the previous panel. I think in order for us to even remotely try to achieve all of the possibilities we speak about with 5G, you need to bring the best competencies to the table. And I'll be honest to say that I think we haven't even started to scratch the surface of what's possible with 5G. And so what's, in my view, I've been in this industry for close to 20 years now, and I haven't seen the telco industry be as relevant now as we are today now, if I compare to the last 20 years. There were some good questions in terms of how do telco operators see their future. We had ideas on what we believe is going to happen in the next 5 years. I think I start by saying that we need to bring the right competencies to the table, because we as a vendor, if you say, the ones, if you think about the end-to-end solution and the technology platform, we arguably sit on a large amount of competence of what this technology and the associated platform can do. But we don't know Ibrahim's business for ports. We know a little bit, but we don't know, I mean, he knows his business. And then I think for us what we need to do, and the same thing with Henrik and Brian, we don't know your business, but what we can do is we can try to understand what you're trying to achieve. As well as you don't understand the technology, and as you said, well, you don't care about the technology. You want the benefits of what the technology can do. That's what you want. That's our job. So I think our role is basically, and that's the role we try to take as a vendor, is to bring together all the relevant parties as we see, and they grow by the day, in order to facilitate the end-to-end solution.
Thank you. Dr. Ahmad, Sharjah Science Park was recently launched with a royal decree. It's focusing a lot on bringing the collaboration between academia, industry and government. If you can talk us through, because I believe it's more of the more nascent entities that are working with the triple helix.
First of all, I would like to thank you, Maya, for the invite and being part of this panel. Before talking about Sharjah Innovation Park, I would like to state some words about the collaboration, how it's important. When I was living in Europe, I was involved in working groups. When I attended the first time a working group on consortiums, I saw that all competitors are sitting all in the same table. Why? To fight for a business? Absolutely not. It's to solve problems together. Because solving problems cannot be alone. You have to have all competitors are sitting together, they have the agreement to work together. When we solve a problem, now we can go to the second KPI, which is the business. Here we can market alone, because here we have to drive about our business. I think here is something that we would like to implement here to less the competition for the business, but to high the competition for impact. Sharjah Research, Technology and Innovation Park is a free zone, regroups the stakeholders from government, from research and academia, and from private sector to work together from two senses, that if I have a researcher who has an applied research and would like to commercialize it, In this case, I have to link him from the academia to the private sector. And vice versa, if I have a private sector who has a problem to be solved, in this case I can involve the academia to solve their problems and to use the right talents from universities and academia. And we have seen from the previous panel the importance of involving the academic sector with the private sector to solve the problems together. I think this is very important here. This is not an easy case. We are fighting from a while, and we are fighting. I think with the importance of the 5G, we can't work together. In IoT, in smart cities, we have to have data. And this data is coming from different stakeholders. And the stakeholders should give the data to the providers and to make it access either by an open data standards or by different standards that people can benefit from this data collection.
Thank you. I just want to do a follow-up question. You mentioned the R&D, the research and development. If we look at that, there is the R&D within academia and then R&D within industries. How do you see it as what's the appetite for it in the region as an enabler of what the possibilities are?
Here in the region, to be honest with you, I didn't see R&D from private sector or from technology providers more than I have seen it from academia point of view in a small scale. The small scale because this academic institution is building their R&D to prove some concepts and to have patents and to have a kind of a high classified papers. This is the aim. But none of this solution, for example, from the R&D to solve the real problems from the industry. And vice versa, when I am consulting the industry presence, less of them are investing in R&D than driving business. But now we are asking this kind of industrial presence to incubate the startups, to accelerate this kind of promising ideas from startups and to create the startups from their knowledge and their expertise. Again, this is not easy. I think to convince government to support, to convince academia to have the right talent to work on it, and also to convince the private sector to invest, to create businesses and to create startups from this one, I think we just started. And I hope that in 5 years, everything is established and the ecosystem is well perceived.
Thank you. This takes me to Professor Tamrin. If we look at the collaboration from game theory and ensuring there's a win-win situation, what's your take on that? And if we see how can universities and industries collaborate and they take on game theory?
Very good question. We at New York University in Abu Dhabi, we have innovation.
Sorry,
hub.
Professor. Yeah.
We have innovation hub.
Good collaboration with the microphones.
Exactly. So we do have an innovation hub. We are trying to gather students so that they can work on specific industry-related problems. We are getting some visitors from the industry, some are bringing their support. And then the students work on real case practical problems for 2-3 years, and then they present this. So this could be a starting point to connect industry together with academia. One specific point. But we should go beyond it because collaboration is something. It's a big word. We are not able to make it concretely what we all want to collaborate here together, but it's difficult to make it. Now, one way of doing it is to start figuring out what we call complementary elements. Means what you are doing complement what I do, because that's the easiest way. And industry and academia could be complementary somehow. You can start from there and scale up from there, so that we bring all the actors at the same table. Then they identify their problems and progressively we build it. I think this is one of the ways to make this happen concretely. Otherwise, we keep doing everyone alone on his side, and then he put adding 1-2 elements and saying that I am collaborating, you are collaborating. Everyone here is going to claim that he is collaborating. But in the end, if you look at, we do meetings, next meeting, and then another meeting, and then another meeting. What's happening concretely? Nothing. So it stays at a small scale. So for that, at the academia side, we are building a couple of things that are theoretical, and thus we can help us to go to the next level. And then of course, regulators and people who are in social science, social impact. So it's not only technology, but technology for social impact. So technology for social good. So that needs all around, that needs all the actors. Not only academia, not only industry, but also psychologists, social scientists, for the people who are going to use that technology. I hope I answered to that.
Yeah, thank you. I want to go back to you, Hans. If you look at the tech startups as, and their role in this 5G and the value they bring to the AI, the smart, the connected, if we see startups as experts, such as, for example, Brighter, Einride, the autonomous driving truck, how can we approach them rather than seeing startups as maybe small companies that don't have that much knowledge? So if we shift the mindset and look at them as subject matter experts, how do they add value? How can we embrace them to add value?
Well, first of all, I think you need to have, talking from the perspective of a multinational.
Yeah, multinationals,
so let's
operators,
say Ericsson.
The economy.
I would say you first have to have a vehicle or a door that they can walk in through. If you don't have that, startups will not help you. The problem of multinationals is that they're very hierarchical and they have big problems with innovation. They usually have quite a few projects where you're pouring millions of dollars in with very little, very few things actually materials coming out of it. So you look to a startup and think you can go and talk to a startups and then somehow capture their innovation and then disrupt yourself. We see time again that multinationals are actually not very good at this. They don't have this engagement team that knows how to engage with the startup and that have a high position within the corporation, maybe even reporting directly to the CEO or the Senior Vice President of Innovation. So they get an ear to the person, the decision maker, who actually can disrupt the organization. Those organizations that are doing this, like IBM, they're quite good at this. They have 15, 16, 17 startups that they're continuously dealing with, and they're reaping and harvesting a lot of very good innovation in a very efficient and cheap way from these startups. Schneider Electric is another one. Microsoft to a certain extent as well. We have in our center Intel, which have an innovation center open from students to established companies. So anyone who wants to or somehow have an application that needs to run through an Intel gateway, Intel will have an ear. So they capture the idea very, very early, much earlier than Intel Ventures. Once the idea reaches the desk of the Intel Venture guy, it usually costs millions of dollars. Now you can capture it much, much earlier. I think that answers your question.
And again, it's very systematic to have it engraved. And this might be lacking to some industries, like some big corporates, to have the systematic approach of giving priority to innovation.
You need a team that knows how to bring it into the corporation. If you don't have that team, you can invest in accelerators, you can invest in startups, or play a VC role or whatever. If you don't have the engagement team, it will be very hard to actually profit from the innovation.
And a thought that comes, it's almost like $1 million question. How do corporates do that? Because they have innovation departments, but they still rely on an old model.
Now, so now talking from the perspective of the government. So you know the Dubai Future Foundations and the Dubai Future Accelerator. They're actually trying to attack that exact problem. The government here wants to be the most innovative government in the world. How do you do that? You need to accelerate faster than everyone else. So it's actually a model also for multinationals. What you need to do is to have an engagement team, as I just said, that talks to the startup. So what they've done, and this Ericsson can do as well, communicate to a gremium or some institution, what are the low-hanging fruits? What is it that you actually want to innovate? Do we know? Do we know today what are the 5 or the 10 things where Ericsson wants to innovate right now? If the community doesn't know it, they will not come to you. And it will also be very difficult for your engagement team to go out and look for the needle in a haystack. If you say the hot topic today is AI, there are thousands of AI companies. Which one is it that you need for your corporation? So it's a question of communicating the right way, having the right scouting team helping you find it. And so the Dubai Future what's called Accelerator, established for 11 government entities engagement teams. Now you can discuss how successful was it. I think they learned a lot from the cohorts that they can improve. Of course they can improve, we can all improve. But I think this is the first step.
Very good, thank you so much. Dr. Ahmed, I want to go to you to factors that encourage entrepreneurs in general. If we look at the IP and the funding, IP in general, again, in the region is quite nascent. What's your view looking forward? How is Sharjah Science Park, as there are multiple initiatives from a federal level and emirate level to encourage innovation, as Hans mentioned, Dubai Future Foundation, you have Shirar, Vision 2021, so there are multiple initiatives. How is IP and funding solved?
I think it's an excellent question. And looking at it from the perspective of the whole UAE, as Hans mentioned, it's very important to involve government entities from different aspects, the regulation point of view, from the finance point of view, and also for the funding. And here, because the support of the government and to incubate also not from the technology provider point of view. This is where sometimes we are mixing up. He is involved in everything, okay, from A to Z because he's funding. And here, no, we have to separate the stakeholder from the proper way. IP is very important because anybody who has an idea, he has also the will that to share his idea or to come and to pitch his idea. First of all, we have to guarantee him that we are protecting your idea in this case. In our science park, we will have an IP attorney and located in our park to guarantee, first of all, about the copyright of the idea and after to register it to be filed. It is in some universities, they have this process. But as a science park, I think this is more important here to regroup and to attract this kind of activities from the research, fundamental research to be applied research, what we call it technology transfer. But all that should be all together working. All together. I can't be only for IP attorney and I don't have technology transfer. And I can't be as a science park without a government funding or government support, or having no partners to support me for incubation and acceleration. I think this is a complete ecosystem. It has to work all together. And one part of it is missing. I think the whole ecosystem is putting on hold.
Right, true. This is really interesting with regard to funding. I was reading an article, when preparing for this, and it mentions that as funding in the UAE available from all aggregates, federal, Emirates, initiatives, $1 trillion in funding available, which when you look, startups are complaining, but again, I think there's so many multiple initiatives, but there's no central body or unit that oversees everything and engages. Right, thank you.
I think here, this is a great point that you highlighted, thank you very much. Funding should not look to a certain community against another community. It should be open to all, first. Second one, it has to take risks. I think risk here, this is a big question mark. That we are talking to venture capitals or to funding bodies. This is about the risk absence here. We have to educate ourselves or change the management about funding doesn't mean I am acquiring a business or I'm profit 100%. It could be I can lose the money completely. But sometimes it's a jackpot that we could have one anchor company that can replace the all expenses of this funding.
Thank you. Behdat, back to you. I want to ask you about the business models and engagements and the value adding. And during the discussion, you raised an interesting point of collaborating from a sustainability perspective. If you want to talk us through what value adding can mean and which formats they can come in.
Sure. I think if we take a step back and think about the sort of collaborations that are happening, everybody's kind of coming to realization that many things can be affected, but there's one thing that is on everybody's agenda more and more. And I brought this booklet with me to do a bit of a promo for this, because this is something that's close to my heart, and that's the climate action goals. And if you haven't read up on it, then I think, if not for your own sake, I think for your own kids' sake, to read up on it. And there's some really, really aggressive and important goals here. So to answer your question is that there's a lot of energy and inspiration amongst younger talent to pursue ideas and opportunities, how they can create value, but there's monetary value, but there's also the fact that you can speak about productivity gains, but there's the fact of doing that while making sure that we can sustain it. So when you start to look at this, and it kind of segue into the business models and questions. So I'm not going to go into the details of this, but just so you understand, by 2050, the researchers are saying that that's the pivoting point where we no longer can save the planet, basically, because at that point of time, if we continue with the same trajectory, then no matter the efforts, can we stop the development. So then it means we have to halve our carbon output every 10 years from now. Think about that for a moment. Halve it every 10 years. All of us have been with the previous panel cheering on about value creation, connecting everything. Just keep that in mind. At the same time, we're supposed to create all of that value creation at the same time having carbon output. So 7 of the strategies to achieve that relate largely to what we do in technology sector. 4 of them of the 7, I'd like to say. One of them is business models. And one example of that is that you want to go from ownership to usership. So you could, certain car manufacturers, they are now looking at, instead of you owning the car, you use it when you need to, kind of like a butler service. So the car is made available for you at any point of time you need it, clean, and in the condition that you agree. That kind of mentality is quite far from how all of us react today. We go to the dealer and we buy, especially in Dubai, I see pretty impressive cars. So this is just to give an example. So when we think about collaboration, we have to think about 3 aspects in my mind to create efficient collaboration. We have to think about it from a technical standpoint. We have to think about it from an operational standpoint. But please, let's forget the commercial aspect of it. That goes into the business models and things about the aspects that are beyond the traditional means that we've got. And I think if you think about the partnerships and the ecosystems that are being created, you can talk about some of the friends that we have here from Ericsson. It's a 3-party and a 4-party and a 5-party conversation, including on how you split the revenues. It's not the one-to-one relation anymore.
Thank you. Charlotte, I want to go back to you. When you started, you mentioned, background and all the collaboration that you're working on from an IT perspective. If you are able to zoom in on a more concrete engagement that is of relevance to what we're talking about, an opportunity, so for the audience to give relevance.
Sure. Can you hear me? Yeah. So I told you about our Iot Accelerator as a service that we're providing to various carriers around the world. We're actually right now having 35 carriers onboarded onto our platform. We're serving 4,400 enterprises. But out of all those enterprises, I would like to mention one in particular, which is very dear to us, and that is Writer. They're here. Writer came to us almost on the day 4 years ago when we signed an agreement, and they wanted to do so by giving them, chance to mobilize that service. So they asked us, you know, Ericsson, you know, you are working on a global basis. What shall we do technology-wise? So of course there was loads of conversations ongoing. You know, 4 years ago also was 3G, 4G, etc. 5G was discussed, but you know, no one really knew. What Henrik here mentioned earlier on the panel was actually that it wasn't so important for them what exact technologies that we could advise them on, but rather a few components that were really important. They wanted something that was secure, certainly, because they're dealing with some really impactful you know, transactions here. They also wanted something that was scalable. And of course they wanted something that they could trust. And what we said is that basically we think that the best option that you have, and also being that that is this kind of industry we're in, is that, you know, cellular connectivity is by far the best opportunity you have, because it's autonomous, it gives you the scale, it's reliable, and you have the security aspects of it. So that was a collaboration that we started, and not only did we do that actually, I think based on conversations throughout that partnership, it was clear also that Ryder had an international ambition. They just, you know, they wanted to reach out. So what do you do then? Well, they took a fantastic leap and the point, quite a risky decision, because no one really knew so much about it, and that was, you know, let's hit the ground with the EU ICC and an ESA, because that's going to give us the international aspects, and we're going to be able to go to market and localize our service no matter where we're going. So that was also an important decision that was taken, and I would like to believe that the decision taken together made it easier for Ryder to also take that decision and move on. But I mean, it's a collaboration, so it's about partnership. So whilst we may have given some insights from a technology point of view, from a global aspect point of view, to a company such as Ryder, being that we're an MNC, we're acting, you know, we tend to have problems taking, you know, the innovative part into our business. And Hans, you were mentioning those aspects very, very well. But I think overall what has happened for us is that whilst we have developed our Iot Accelerator, we've been able to capture the learnings that we have made from Ryder and be able to internalize those when we are developing our service. Because in the end of the day, we're providing it as a service to our carriers or CSPs, but they are going to go to market with it to enterprises. So they need to, so our service needs to be relevant. And Ryder has helped us with that. They have helped us to become a relevant provider of global managed connectivity.
Interesting. And I know that we have another session with Ryder at 3:30.
Yeah, looking forward.
Insights. Before I go into my last question, and this will be for the gentleman from the ecosystem, unfortunately the operators left, but thinking from, you know, going forward, all the potential that is promised by 5G, what would you need from operators, governments, industries? What would you say, one sentence, or a thought, what would you need? One long sentence.
Talked about it, and we need collaboration. We are collaborating with the telcos in this country, and we know they have lots of money, they have lots of pressure to innovate. We know the situation is that they are protected. Nevertheless, they are very interested in innovating, and so they come to us, they come to our, and they are part of the ecosystem today. Or to say it in one sense, collaborate.
Thank you. Professor Tembin?
I want to say that, yeah, this is probably the best way, because we should continue to collaborate. We should work on how to make this collaboration to be more real, concrete, and the best way is to start from the people, ask the people what they want, and then operator can work with us, can work with the universities all across, and then progressively build up the ecosystem.
Thank you. And Dr. Ahmad,
My word for this is openness. I think being open in governance, being open in data, being open in collaboration, I think this is the key success of 5G deployment in all sectors, government, academia, and the private sector.
thank you. And then the last question, which is about the future, I'll go to you, Behdad. We've spoken of value-adding collaboration, but is it scalable? What's your vision of it if you look to the future? $1 million question.
I want to clarify the question. The question is if any of the ideas are scalable.
Value-adding business model, is it something that can be replicable? Is it of value?
Absolutely. So one of the key criteria that we look at when we take in ideas is that it is replicable and scalable. So we look at the technology stack from a horizontal standpoint, because if you make it too customized, then it's going to be difficult to scale it. So that's one of the big priorities. Can I make a comment on the previous one that you asked?
Of course.
Because I think as a company, we do this that we've been discussing, and you and I have had a bit of a chat during the panel as well on the side. I mean, Ericsson is involved with, we have a D15 lab. It's a lab that we started off in North America to invite basically the partner ecosystem to come in and basically test all of their ideas on our technology. Going from 5G to AI to edge compute and everything. So everything's there. And that's to lower the threshold for everybody who has an idea, come and test it. And then you have engineers there, you have business consultants there that can help, coaches if you will. We have a setup with the Aachen industry in Germany doing the same. But then maybe I'll just leave you with this last thought. We are running a Global Innovation Awards that is open now. And we specifically target university community basically. And you pitch your ideas, you go through a process, winning idea gets 25,000 euros in funding and coaches and support, and the whole idea is basically just to vet the idea. And in fact, one of the team members I have in my team happened to come in that way. Even now she is part of the big corp, if you will, and there are more of them. So I think there are a lot of things happening, but I guess here in this region, to be honest, there's a lot of energy and things bubbling, but it's maybe now is the time to make something concrete. So if you want, take that innovation award back to your community and start sending in ideas.
This year will take me to Dr. Ahmad. With all the initiatives being launched, as we mentioned a bit earlier, from the governments, and we look at from when Sharjah Science Park was launched and now, how do you see the future going at the rate of bringing everything together? What's your vision of the future?
The future is bright, is very promising. I think we are, with the collaboration of other ecosystems, we are making impact in the society, which is good. And I would like to see, as he mentioned about North America, to see exactly the same model implemented here by using the right talent at the right place and developing the right applications for the right nation. This cannot be exported from somewhere else to come here and landed here. Absolutely not. It has to be created from scratch from here. And this is exactly what we are pushing. Academia, they know the nature of problems in the society. Partners, they know very well which type of applications or type of technology they will provide. Government, they know very well that this problem should be solved because we are going beyond our technology development for smart cities, 5G and something. And hello, welcome. Let's work together. Let's collaborate together. I think this is bright. It's very exciting to see the future. Our science park, we are working very hard to attract this kind of a key enablers on technology and to work with the academia and to work with the startups. Why? For the benefit of them, of course, because we are not telling them invest without a return of investment. The return on investment cannot be always a signed dollar. It can be a big impact on the society, which is more important than the signed dollar.
It's interesting with having a more organic approach that you have the growth coming from the country. Professor Tambeen, I want to look at, if you look at the future and the STEM education, academia is a bit more long-term. Do you believe, or do you see, or the rate we're going, universities becoming more and more test beds to try all of these new technologies and a platform for more collaboration to show concrete results?
Absolutely. So some of the test bed, at least the elementary ones, can be started at the labs. We have innovation lab. We can do a couple of experiences at the small level, like using drones over campus, autonomous vehicles, but at a small scale. So this type of things, our students are ready to do this type of things, and they are participating already to the award, this competition. We have been participating last year for the 5G, together with Ericsson and Etisalat. So they have been quite involved. We've got a couple of candidates this year too. So we'll be doing this type of things on campus. I think it might not solve the problem, but at least you get engaged with students who go back at home and explain to their parents and to the people in the city, and what we really need can be brought through that channel. It's one of the paths. So we can continue work on this and building from that perspective. I think university is going to play a key role in this, at least one of the big players. Of course, we need industry to grow up and scale, make the bridge. And one of the bridge, at least one of the steps in the bridge is through students. Again, students and always students. That's the best channel.
Thank you. Hans, going to, I know GITEX is expanding, so how do you see the future?
Better here. We are very, very bullish, just like Dr. Ahmed. We are working very hard to put especially Dubai on the radar between the 30 top cities in the world. We have seen how we have grown from 8 years ago, where there was absolutely hardly any startup whatsoever, to having more than 30 programs in Dubai now. And we are betting that we will have about 2,000 startups. We have 810 now. We hope we will reach the 2,000 mark within the next 30, 40 months. But more importantly, as we were discussing before, that we will center, innovation, entrepreneurship, or cluster it in certain places in Dubai, perhaps even in Dubai Silicon Oasis. That's at least the Executive Council is talking about that, so that it becomes more efficient, much bigger, and you will have all the ingredients you need in a thriving ecosystem. And I think this, and I think the corporates play a very important role in this. The problem we have had in the past years is that most of the big multinational corporations have just had sales organizations here. And I see this is changing. I'm very happy to see that this is changing. You yourself have an innovation center here. Other multinationals are following suit. And with them, we can create a fantastic hub in the MENA region happening in Dubai.
Just before I come to you, Charlotte, one question to Dr. Ahmed and Hans. Do you collaborate, or would you be willing to collaborate? Because when listening, it's very clear, Sharjah, Dubai.
You are smart, because you read my mind. Thank you.
It's like a very clear distinction. What's...
Yes, I'm asking as I think we have to put hand in hand. I'm not limited to Sharjah. I'm not limited to Dubai. I'm with the UAE and for the whole region. I think having an excellent model of entrepreneur and startups in one area, and it can be contagious to other areas. I know GITEX how they are very strong. I know ourselves how we are very aggressive and strong. I think complementing each other, not competing each other, complementing each other will lead, I think, and also will with New York University, they have an excellent startup program, I think, here. Putting our hand in hand, I think, and working together, I think will give an excellent model or example to the whole region and even to the world.
So I absolutely agree. It is a scientific fact that in ecosystems that are thriving, that collaborate, grows much faster. Now you have a Hub 71 in Abu Dhabi, you have Shira, you have New York startup hub, yeah, exactly. Which we also done several things with already, reports and all that. And we see that if they grow, we grow. You know, and that's how it is. It's not the winner takes it all. That would be completely the wrong approach, I think. We see that Bahrain is growing. We see that in Kuwait there are things happening. Cairo is growing like crazy right now. And a lot of the startups that we have in our center come from Bangalore. Bangalore is now number 11 or number 13 worldwide in terms of entrepreneurship. And it's feeding, it's helping us, it's water on our mill. We have almost 300 Indian startups in our center today. That's our largest community. So.
Thank you. And then Lotta, looking at the future, will we have more similar collaborations like the ones we have with Brighter?
I think there's no other way forward. To be honest, we've talked so much about collaboration here, and I think it's super clear that the business of tomorrow is so complex that no party alone can manage to drive it forward. So the ones that will be successful will be the ones that take a leading role in collaboration and creating those arenas, so to speak, for that to happen, and where ideas can meet and collide. Because from that, there is something powerful that can happen, or may happen. We don't always know. And I guess that is the doubt where we always, where we tend also perhaps to hesitate to move into a collaborative environment, especially when you talk about industries that have been very self-contained before, such as telco, for example. There is a mental barrier, I think, to reach out and see what's going to happen if I, collaborate with this party here. Could that be my competitor, really, or not? Oh, I don't dare to, because maybe. But in the end of the day, what I think is really important to remember is that I think the cost of not collaborating is going to be bigger than the potential cost of collaborating and making a few mistakes along the way. And which ties in a little bit perhaps to game theory as well. But I think the one piece of thought that I'm having as well is when I've been driving certain innovation projects internally in Ericsson as well, is that you quite often tend to kind of over-strategize, because you tend to kind of keep it on a high level. Where are we going? Which customer choose this? And then you kind of get stuck there, and nothing comes out of it. To your point as well, and I think. Once you need to have a certain level of direction, you have to have also a big portion of doing and failing and doing again, etc. And I think the startup community is learning us that as well continuously. So that would be my advice as well, that don't be too fearful of collaborating, making mistakes, but also just keeping the ambitions and goals very short or small, so that you quick can reach them and quick can kind of turn over your potential ideas and bring in new players if you need to, or kick some out if you feel that it's not working. You know what I mean? So I think that is something that I hope that I will see for the future, and where certainly Ericsson can play that part through our Iot Accelerator system.
Thank you very much. And I just want to see, is there any questions from the audience or? Okay. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. And I feel the best summary for this is that a quote by Alan Keyes: the best way to predict the future is to create it. And I hope we will jointly co-create it. Thank you so much. It's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you.